Here comes the hit.
November brought a busy round of immigration changes, with the United Kingdom and the United States tightening several rules and the European Union updating its visa procedures. These shifts touched students, workers, employers and travelers, creating new documentation and compliance requirements across different routes. December 2025 is set to bring another wave of updates, with New Zealand rolling out seasonal visas, the US Visa Bulletin determining who can move ahead in green card queues, and the United Kingdom, Austria, Singapore and Australia all enforcing dated changes. Here is a look at what happened in November, and what is lined up for December 2025. United Kingdom's rule reshuffle triggers fresh checks. In November 2025, the United Kingdom introduced one of its broader immigration rule packages in recent years. The set of Home Office changes that took effect on November 11 cut across sponsored work routes, student migration and compliance duties for employers and education providers. Sponsors now have to pay closer attention to how they issue certificates of sponsorship, track staff or students and record any changes. Many employers have spent recent weeks reviewing HR systems, right-to-work checks and record-keeping to make sure every sponsored worker still meets updated requirements. Immigration advisors say cases sitting close to minimum salary or documentation thresholds are now more vulnerable to refusals or requests for extra evidence, which can stretch processing times and unsettle workers and their families. Students were also pulled into these changes through a steep rise in the maintenance or proof of funds requirement. Under the revised student visa rules, applicants now need to show in pound $1,529 per month for up to 9 months, and pound $13,761 for an academic year, in addition to tuition fees. For students from India and other countries with weaker currencies, this has pushed the bar higher, with families adjusting savings, turning to larger loans or rethinking destinations. Universities have been updating their guidance, and some agents report that prospective students are pausing plans due to the sharper financial demands. At the same time, the expansion of the high potential individual visa from November 4 introduced one of the few flexible changes. The widened list of eligible universities means more high-achieving graduates can work in the United Kingdom without relying on a sponsoring employer. This has appealed to people in tech, research and creative fields who want freedom to switch roles or start ventures without risk to their status. United States ties procedures more closely to country of origin. November also brought tighter rules in the United States. From November 1, immigrant visa applicants must attend interviews in their country of nationality or residence. Earlier, many applicants, especially from countries with long queues, tried to secure appointments in third countries. That option has largely vanished, leaving people with longer waits, higher travel costs or less flexibility if they have relocated. Non-immigrant categories such as F, M and G have seen increased scrutiny as well. New or higher visa integrity fees and wider documentation demands have added to the cost and paperwork. Applicants are being asked for more background information, including social media history in many cases, which has added extra worry for students concerned about how older posts might be read by consular officers. Alongside these changes, discussion around the proposed Dignity Act of 2025 has created added uncertainty. The bill's suggestion to remove the long-standing intent to leave rule for F1 students could, on paper, make it easier for them to build longer-term plans in the United States. But other parts of the proposal raise the possibility of limits on optional practical training or stricter fixed-term admissions. Since nothing has passed into law, institutions have been telling students that rules remain unchanged for now, even as the broader debate continues to shape expectations for 2026. The late November shockwave after the Washington shooting. The most dramatic shifts came in the final days of the month. After the fatal shooting of 2 National Guard members in Washington, D.C. by an Afghan national whose asylum case had been approved earlier in the year, the administration moved quickly. On November 28 and N-29, the State Department instructed all embassies and consulates to stop processing visas for Afghan passport holders across every category. This covered special immigrant visas, family-based applications, student visas and employment routes. Interviews that were already scheduled went ahead on paper, but officers were directed to refuse the cases, and previously issued but unprinted visas were cancelled. Thousands of Afghans, including those who had completed extensive screening and were nearing the end of the SIF pipeline, were left in indefinite uncertainty. At the same time, the White House directed U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services to pause all asylum decisions nationwide while officials reviewed recent approvals and internal procedures. Interviews were postponed without new dates, and lawyers said officers were under instruction not to issue approvals. This froze both affirmative and defensive asylum cases inside the United States and affected applicants abroad who were waiting on the next step of their files. Late on November 28, President released a long Thanksgiving message on Truth Social, saying the United States would impose a permanent pause on migration from what he calls third world countries. The post did not include a formal list, but its tone suggested broad coverage across Africa, South Asia, parts of the Middle East, Latin America and other regions long subjected to extra scrutiny. Officials later indicated that stricter vetting, more frequent refusals and additional reviews of approved petitions should be expected for applicants from these regions. The administration also signaled wider ambitions, tightening public charge rules, restricting federal benefits for non-citizens and re-examining naturalization files where national security concerns had been raised. By the end of November, the United States had moved from targeted rule changes to a far deeper clampdown that reshaped expectations for students, workers, asylum seekers and families across multiple countries. India resumes global tourist visas for Chinese nationals. Outside the United Kingdom and the United States, November brought movement elsewhere. India's decision to resume issuing tourist visas to Chinese citizens worldwide reopened a channel that had been heavily restricted during the pandemic and through periods of diplomatic tension. Travel businesses are watching for early signs of demand, as Chinese travelers have historically spent well on trips and retail. The decision also signals a step, however limited, towards normalized cross-border mobility between the two countries. EU extends the period for suspending visa-free access. Within Europe, the European Council agreed to strengthen its mechanism for suspending visa-free travel for third countries whose nationals are linked to migration or security pressures. The first suspension period now runs for 12 months instead of 9, with a possible extension of up to 24 months. No country is affected immediately, but the change gives the European Union more time to manage sudden spikes in asylum claims or concerns about document security. For countries that rely on visa-free access, the update could mean longer windows of uncertainty before restrictions are lifted. New Zealand begins December with new paperwork rules. December opens with two separate New Zealand changes that affect Indian applicants in particular. From December 1, 2025, Immigration New Zealand will only accept police clearance certificates issued by a regional passport office of India's Ministry of External Affairs. Earlier, PCCs from local police stations were common, but uneven documentation made verification harder. Anyone preparing a visa file must now factor in the extra time needed to secure a passport office PCC. On December 8, 2025, New Zealand will begin accepting applications for two new seasonal visas under the Accredited Employer Work Visa System, the Global Workforce Seasonal Visa and the Peak Seasonal Visa. These routes will serve employers dealing with seasonal surges in sectors such as agriculture, horticulture, food processing and tourism. The GWSV covers longer recurring seasonal roles with the option of return seasons, while the PSV is for shorter peak periods of up to about 7 months. December 8 becomes an anchor date for employers shifting from ad hoc hiring to these structured categories. U.S. Green Card progress linked to December's visa bulletin. In the United States, December 2025 movement largely depends on the monthly visa bulletin, which controls who can move forward with immigrant visa or adjustment of status applications. The December Bulletin, numbered 9 in Volume 11, brings small advances in employment-based queues for high-demand countries. Analysts note that Indian EB1 moves forward by around a month, EB2 by a little over 6 weeks and EB3 by roughly a month. For those with older priority dates, December may finally allow visa issuance or adjustment approval. Families also see minor shifts across preference categories, though nothing that resolves deeper backlogs. United Kingdom cost increase lands mid-month. The United Kingdom also has a dated cost increase for sponsors. From December 16, 2025, the immigration skills charge rises for certificates of sponsorship assigned on or after that date. Annual charges for medium and large sponsors rise from £1,000 to £1,320 per worker. For small or charitable sponsors, the annual amount goes from £364 to £480. Because the charge is triggered by the date the certificate of sponsorship is assigned, employers trying to avoid higher costs must act before December 16th. Austria opens a commuter permit for cross-border workers. Austria's main December change launches on December 1, 2025 with a new residence permit and cross-border commuter. This route is meant for third country nationals who live permanently in a neighboring EU country but commute into Austrian border regions for work. The permit can run for up to 2 years and allows regular commuting without a full relocation. The applicant must keep a main home outside Austria and already have full labor market access in their country of residence. Employers will still need a labor market test, but the structure is simpler than previous arrangements for commuters. Singapore introduces a 180-day window for re-entry permit lapses. Singapore's update, also effective December 1, 2025, gives permanent residents who are overseas without a valid re-entry permit a fixed 180-day period to submit a renewal application while retaining PR status. Earlier, losing in rep while abroad often meant losing PR immediately. The new system sets a clear countdown and allows return during this period on a single entry pass, though PR status will lapse if no application is filed within 180 days. Australia shifts skills assessment timelines on December 1st. Australia begins its December changes on December 1st, 2025 at the skills assessment stage. WaitAssess will introduce updated timelines, 7 weeks for initial assessments, reviews and reassessments, and 12 weeks for appeals. Applicants will have 28 days to provide any requested documents. Identity requirements tighten as well, with 3 separate documents needed, including a government-issued photo ID. Assessment outcome letters will use clearer suitable or not suitable labels. Meanwhile, New Zealand's new police clearance rule for Indian applicants folds into broader documentation checks across multiple destinations. In Australia's work and holiday program, a pre-application lodgement window closes on December 16, 2025 for certain subclass 462 cohorts, making that the final cutoff for those applicants under current settings.
Like and subscribe to Newscraft Studio for more awesome content.